The Viridian delegation stood in stunned silence as Kennedy held up the small vial of crimson liquid, letting the overhead lights catch its iridescent shimmer. Her smile was professional, but her eyes held a glint of something the aliens couldn't quite identify. Triumph, perhaps, or vindication. This, she announced to the assembled council, is Compound V7, the most revolutionary treatment for cellular degeneration in the known galaxy. Retail price, 15,000 credits per dose. Ambassador Thexlar's cranial tentacles twitched in what Kennedy had learned to recognize as profound distress. That cannot be. Oh, but it is, Josiah interjected from his position at the holographic display. With a gesture, he brought up molecular structures that rotated in three-dimensional space. Beautiful, isn't it? Your bioweapon had a 99.7% mortality rate when you deployed it 17 years ago. Quite impressive, really. The Viridian ambassador's skin shifted through several colors, settling on a sickly mauve. The other delegates, a Kryn warrior caste, 2 Orcian observers, and a Sulvari merchant prince, leaned forward with varying expressions of disbelief. Kennedy set the vial down gently on the transparent podium. 7 billion humans dead in the first 6 months. My parents among them. Josiah's entire home city of Chicago. Gone. Her voice remained steady, clinical even, but her knuckles whitened as she gripped the podium's edge. You called it Plague 7, a fitting designation for the 7th attempt to exterminate a species you deemed too dangerous to exist alongside. We had projections, Thexlar whispered, his translator struggling with the emotional frequency. Human aggression patterns, expansion rates, resource consumption. You had fear. Josiah cut in, his voice sharp. You looked at a species that went from horse-drawn carriages to lunar landings in a single century and panicked. So you tried to kill us all before we could become a threat. He pulled up another display, this one showing a timeline. What you didn't account for was human stubbornness. Kennedy picked up the narrative. Year 1 after Plague, 7 deployment. 800 million survivors, scattered, dying, civilization in collapse. Year 2, 300 million. We were trending toward extinction, exactly as you'd planned. She paused, and now her smile widened. Then Dr. Sarah Chun, working in a bunker in what used to be Singapore, noticed something interesting. The holographic display shifted to show microscopic imagery. Josiah narrated, a handful of survivors weren't just resistant to Plague 7. Their bodies were metabolizing it, breaking it down into component proteins and using them to repair cellular damage from other sources. Radiation exposure, chemical burns, even natural aging processes, all being reversed. Impossible, the Kryn delegate growled. No species adapts that quickly. No species you've encountered, Kennedy corrected. Humans have been dealing with plagues since before we climbed down from trees. Smallpox, Black Death, influenza, COVID-19. Each one killed millions, and each time, we came back stronger. We've been in an evolutionary arms race with microscopic killers for millennia. You just brought a new opponent to a very old game. Josiah advanced the timeline. Year 3, Dr. Chun and her team successfully synthesized the metabolic pathway. Year 4, first clinical trials on other degenerative conditions. Year 5, mass production begins. Year 8, human population back to 2 billion and growing. He looked directly at Thexlar. Year 17, we're here, selling your bioweapon back to you as the most effective anti-aging treatment ever discovered. The Sulvari merchant prince spoke for the first time, his multi-layered voice carrying shrewd calculation. The irony is exquisite, but the product is legitimate? You have proof of efficacy. Kennedy nodded to Josiah, who brought up reams of data. Tested on 17 different species across the galactic community. Extends cellular longevity by an average of 40%. Reverses accumulated radiation damage. Repairs genetic degradation from rapid space travel. The Orcian colony ship Renaissance bought 3 million doses last quarter. The Orcian observers confirmed this with a gesture of their optical clusters. You're selling the weapon that nearly destroyed you. Thexlar said slowly, comprehension dawning in his multifaceted eyes. You've turned genocide into commerce. We've turned tragedy into survival. Kennedy corrected, her voice hardening. Every dose sold funds reconstruction efforts on Earth. Every credit spent on Compound V 7 rebuilds a school, a hospital, a city. You tried to erase us, Ambassador. Instead, you gave us the most valuable commodity in the galaxy. She picked up the vial again. The Viridian Empire spent billions developing Plague 7. Research costs, deployment logistics, monitoring systems. A failed investment, one might say. Josiah pulled up a contract on the central display. We're offering you an exclusive distribution license for Viridian space. 200 million doses annually at a preferential rate. Think of it as reparations. The various delegates erupted into simultaneous translation-garbled debate. Kennedy and Josiah stood silently, 2 humans among dozens of aliens. Representatives of a species that refused to die. Thexlar raised a manipulator appendage for silence. When the chamber quieted, he spoke directly to Kennedy. I was on the council that approved Plague 7's deployment. I voted yes. I believed humanity represented an existential threat to galactic stability. Did we? Kennedy asked softly. The Viridian ambassador's colors shifted to deep crimson, what Josiah recognized as profound shame. No, you represented change, and we feared change more than we valued justice. He straightened his posture. The Viridian Empire will purchase the distribution rights. Full price, no preferential rates. And we will issue a formal apology to the human species for attempted genocide. Kennedy glanced at Josiah, who gave a slight nod. She turned back to Thexlar. Ambassador, we accept your terms. The contract will be transmitted within the hour. As the delegates filed out, discussing logistics and legal frameworks, the Kryn warrior approached Kennedy and Josiah. Your species is terrifying, she rumbled. Not because of your weapons or your aggression, but because you take the very thing meant to destroy you and make it your salvation. Kennedy smiled, genuine this time. We've had practice. It's kind of our thing. When the chamber finally emptied, Josiah slumped against the podium. 7 billion dead, and we just negotiated a trade deal with their killers. 7 billion dead, Kennedy agreed, and 7 billion reasons why humanity survives. She held up the vial one more time, watching the light play through the liquid that had once been meant to end them. They tried to write our epitaph. We turned it into a prescription. Outside the station's viewports, Earth hung in space, scarred but healing, covered in the lights of rebuilding cities. Humanity had faced extinction and responded the only way it knew how, by adapting, surviving, and turning catastrophe into opportunity. The Viridians had sent a plague to wipe them out. Humans had bottled it and sold it as medicine. It was, Josiah reflected, the most human thing they could have done.